RRF Caserta, South Italy. News in English.
Radio Ritorno Futuro Caserta. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We've got a fascinating source stack, the entire press review from a single day, December 9, 2025.
It's a really high-definition snapshot of the media landscape, both in Italy and globally.
Exactly. It covers everything from, high-stakes geopolitics to huge shifts in domestic policy and even some surprising financial stories in the world of sport.
And our mission really is to get behind those headlines.
Right. We want to synthesize the key arguments and pull out the underlying tensions so you can see what was really driving the conversation on that specific day.
And it really is a study in contrast. On one hand, you see this almost desperate push for international unity, this constant, very costly need to solidify alliances, to shield partners like Ukraine.
And on the other hand,
the domestic news is just dominated by polarization, intense political fights, and, well, a really deep look at public integrity and spending. It's a moment that's defined by the cost of unity, but also the cost of division.
That's a great way to frame it. So let's unpack that, starting with the biggest global story. Section 1. The geopolitical tightrope with Ukraine, the U.S., and the EU.
The focus here is completely on diplomatic momentum. I mean, the papers are just full of details about President Zelensky's diplomatic tour.
It's an intense one.
Oh, incredibly intense. He's meeting with huge figures, Starmer, Mayors, Macron, and then there's this imminent, very high-profile trip to Italy.
To meet with Prime Minister Meloni and the Pope. Yeah.
Exactly. And this isn't just a standard appeal for more money. It's a strategic move. He's trying to lock in long-term political commitments.
And the price for those commitments is made crystal clear in the quotes from the papers. Zelensky's position is just. It's a line in the sand.
It really is. Non daremo terra Mosca. We will not give land to Moscow.
And the follow-up. Non abbiamo diritto di rivedere confini. We don't have the right to revise borders. That's the glue, right? That's what's holding the European side of the alliance together.
It is the official unifying stance.
Yeah.
Many papers just summarize it by saying Europe is blinda, it's shielding, it's uniting behind Zelensky. But that unity is immediately overshadowed by some volatility from across the Atlantic.
And this is where the tension becomes so clear. Both La Repubblica and Corriere della Sera give a lot of space to the shadow of former President Trump.
His warning is sharp. He says the allies are spagliando. They're making a mistake.
And heading in a direzione pericolosa, a dangerous direction. It just injects this massive dose of uncertainty right into the heart of the Western alliance.
And that uncertainty is acknowledged by Zelensky himself. Il Messaggero noted that even while he's securing European support, he specifically stressed that the USA remains indispensable.
So the implication is that European unity is great, but it's secondary.
Precisely. If the political commitment from the U.S. shifts, the entire defense posture could just collapse.
Which makes the political maneuvering in Rome even more fascinating, because while the public line is all about non-negotiable borders,
Right.
La Stampa reported that Meloni is quietly trying to media sui territory, to mediate on the territories.
And that suggests a really crucial hidden dynamic. You have the public solidarity, this absolute denial of revising borders.
But behind the scenes,
There's this quiet, high-level diplomatic push for a potential off-ramp. A negotiated solution that might have to address territorial issues, even if it contradicts the official line.
it just shows the incredible pressure they're all under.
Exactly. To fund the defense, but also to find a way out of the conflict.
That's a perfect transition, actually, from the cost of international unity to the political cost of division at home. Let's shift gears to Section 2, migration policy. The media called it a svolta, a turning point for Europe.
It's a massive policy pivot, and it was spearheaded by Italy. The sources all detail this new EU approval of Italy's proposal.
Which is to transfer non-EU migrants to so-called paesi sicuri, safe countries.
Right, for processing and repatriation.
Yeah.
The EU is basically moving toward externalized processing centers to shift the burden away from the frontline states.
And Il Messaggero even names the countries they're looking at as partners. Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia.
And Bangladesh. These deals would fundamentally change where and how asylum claims are even handled.
But this move was met with, extreme cynicism.
Oh, absolutely. The opposition's critique, which was quoted in the press review, was brutal.
They said, when things go badly, sovereignists in Europe, just like in the US, shift the attention to migrants so people don't complain about other things.
It's a direct political accusation, framing this entire policy not as a humanitarian solution, but as a pure political distraction from, say, a bad economy.
And that polarizing debate gets pushed even further on the domestic front. Il Giornale highlighted a really heartline proposal from Salvini.
A blanket. Stop ai permessi per gli islamici. A stop to permits for Muslims.
Which moves the whole discussion away from border logistics and into explicit identity-based policy. It just escalates the division.
And this is where the analysis from Il Manifesto becomes so important for understanding the big picture.
What was their take?
They argue that this EU approval, this whole move towards safe countries, basically shows that le politiche trumpiane sull'immigrazione fanno scuola.
Trump's immigration policies are setting an example.
Exactly. And the long-term implication, according to them, is that this shift reduces the fundamental right to asylum from a humanitarian obligation to just a question geopolitica.
A geopolitical issue.
Just another tool for international leverage and diplomatic bargaining, not necessarily about protecting people. It's a really powerful assessment of how politics can change the nature of human rights.
Okay, so from the political cost of migration, let's turn inward for Section 3. Here, the scrutiny is all in financial moves and accountability, or the lack of it, across Italy.
And we can start with the macro context. Il Sole 24 Ore reminded everyone of the global economic tilt, noting that China hit a record commercial surplus.
A reminder of the shifting trade powers. But the real domestic drama is centered on the annual budget law, the manovra.
Right. And the European Central Bank, the BCE, once again, Virna, it slows down or just blocks a really controversial amendment.
This is the one that keeps coming up, right? The idea of handing over Bank Italia's gold reserves directly to the Italian people.
It's a recurring political gesture, a very populist one. And the reason it keeps failing is that the BCE asserts jurisdiction. Any move to liquidate or reallocate a central bank's gold reserves touches on national solvency and European financial stability.
So it's a political idea that just can't get past the institutional framework of the EU.
Pretty much. And while that debate is happening, the maneuver is also finalizing the less glamorous but much more essential updates. The ones affecting imprises, affitti fiscaux businesses, rents, and taxes.
The things that actually shape daily life.
Exactly. And this is where the conversation turns pretty dark, because the papers were just littered with stories about corruption.
A deep crisis of integrity. The scope of it is just staggering. On the international scale, you have Il Fatto Quotidiano detailing reports of tangenti bribes related to NATO arms deals.
Involving an Italian figure linked to Israel. So this is corruption to the highest level of international security.
And then you contrast that with the story from Il Resto del Carlino.
The arrest of the head of the nephrology department at a hospital in Rome for Mazette, for bribes.
From arms deals to hospital beds.
It's a clear message that the failure of integrity spans every level of the state, from the most powerful to the most vulnerable.
And set against all this are two other extreme points of tension. On one hand, Il Fatto Quotidiano mentions that 16 Italians are among the richest people in Switzerland, so immense private wealth held offshore.
And on the other hand, you have Libero with this sharp condemnation of the violent fringes of the no-TAV movement.
They accuse the movement of terrorismo against police, citing some pretty terrifying weapons.
Yeah, macchine per lanciare pietre difficili e bombe con I chiodi. Machines for launching 5-kilo stones and nail bombs. It's just a snapshot of extreme wealth, extreme corruption, and extreme domestic violence, all coexisting.
And finally, let's tie this back to financial scrutiny with a case study in sports. Tuttosport basically put Juventus on trial, a processo al mercato, a trial of the transfer market.
It's a perfect example of terrible investment and zero accountability. The paper points out that Juventus spent an astronomical 300 million euros on 21 players over 3 years.
And the result?
None of those players guaranteed a salto di qualità, a quality leap in any department. The money just vanished without any real impact.
Okay, let's pivot from that to Section 4, because ironically, the only place we find a successful immediate return on investment is actually on the pitch, the highs and lows of Italian sport.
And the main event, dominating both La Gazzetta dello Sport and Corriere dello Sport, was the AC Milan comeback.
An incredible game. They were down 0-2 against Torino.
And they managed to pull off a dramatic 3-2 victory, which vaulted them right to the top of the Serie A table, tied with Napoli.
And the hero of the story was Christian Pulisic.
the absolute protagonist. He came off the bench and scored the 2 decisive goals.
And what makes this story so captivating is the detail from Corriere dello Sport that Pulisic was supposedly copain la febre.
Knocked out by a fever just hours before the match.
I mean, that detail is incredible, especially after what we just discussed about Juventus.
It really is. Here you have one athlete, physically ill, delivering an immense, immediate, high-quality performance. The quality leap. It's the polar opposite of the 300 million euros that a rival club spent for 0 gain.
An immediate, quantifiable return on personal effort versus a huge institutional failure.
And we should probably mention the Champions League context, too. The preview for Inter versus Liverpool was a big topic, with the news that Salah was non-convocato dai Reds, not called up by Liverpool.
A tactical advantage for Inter there?
For sure. But the narrative in the sports section closes with a really sobering contrast. While Milan is celebrating this collective triumph.
You have the story from La Stampa about Marcel Jacob.
Yes, the Olympic champion.
Yeah.
A deeply personal and vulnerable confession from him. He said, "Ho perso la scintilla, non riesco a tornare in pista."
I lost the spark, I can't return to the track.
And that shift is just so powerful. From the high of a collective, feverish victory to the solitary, agonizing struggle of an elite athlete who has lost his motivation.
It really underscores how fragile success and performance are, regardless of past achievements or investment.
And it connects everything we've talked about. Whether it's a national team, a defense budget, or a club's transfer market, everything is under this constant, unforgiving pressure to perform.
So let's try to connect all these disparate pieces from the press review. What's the big picture here?
Well, the central tension is just unavoidable. You have this massive global effort focused on paying for defense and reconstruction in Ukraine, the cost of unity. And that is immediately juxtaposed against this intense, polarizing focus on border control and the steep political cost of migration policy at home.
The twin demands facing the government.
Exactly. And for you, the key takeaway is that even in one day's news, these themes of performance and integrity are everywhere. You see performance failures in sports spending. You see political performance being blocked by regulators.
Like the BCE blocking the gold plan.
Right. And you see integrity failures that range from massive defense contracts all the way down to hospital bribes. The scrutiny is universal, and the demands for accountability are just intense.
Absolutely. And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. Despite all the focus on diplomatic unity and high-stakes alliances abroad, this press review reveals these deep, recurring questions about integrity and public trust right at home. We saw corruption in hospitals, corruption tied to NATO arms, massive failures in sports investment. So the question is, which kind of spending? The necessary defense spending, the polarizing migration enforcement, or the seemingly wasteful market purchases will ultimately have the biggest impact on the country and its trust in its own institutions. Something for you to consider. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
RRF Caserta, South Italy. News in English.